we are starting a brand new series to prepare for the new year called The Power of Habit. The Power of Habit. Why is habit so important? And what I want to do today is I simply just want to explain why habit is so important. We're going to get into, in this series and the next one, some of the most important habits that you can establish. But if you don't understand why, if you don't understand the importance, you'll be like, yeah, I kind of get it. But if you don't, you'll never apply it, and you have no idea that this might be the most important thing you'll ever establish in your life because of this. We're going to define the word. You can write it down. I want you to kind of think about it. A habit is just simply this, something that you consistently do. Oftentimes, it's something you consistently do without even thinking about it. You breathe, that's a habit. No, I'm just playing. But you do different things, and you might even do habits that you don't realize how they're affecting your life because normally the results come over time. But here's the part that we want to lean into as we look at this today. The power of it is this. I will become whatever I consistently do. That might be the biggest duh statement that there is. However, sometimes we think, hey, I can do this, but the results are going to turn out different. I could live like this, and I'm not really looking at my habits, and we don't realize how connected that is. And so today is kind of one of those to start evaluating, hey, what is it that I want, but am I consistently doing the things that are going to get me there? The problem in the church world is sometimes we kind of negate the power of habit. We kind of teach that, hey, just like we talked about last week, and it does nothing to negate what we talked about, where we say, hey, you come to faith in God, and God will change your life, and that's kind of an event. But sometimes we leave off that there is a huge process that comes on the other side of it. We kind of want to talk through that in this series because it's so important. Because here's what I believe, that your habits, not what you think, not just what I think about, not just what I read about, right? You agree with that? Is my habit not just what I think or read about, that's what I'm going to become. We understand that when it comes to exercise, right? I could read about exercise, but just reading about it doesn't change my fitness. Is that true? Does that make sense? I could think about fitness, but if I don't actually do it, it's not going to affect my life. Right? In fact, I could intend to do it. That's a good thing, right? I have the will and I want to do it, but my intentions don't get me there. My habits do, right? What I consistently do, that's what I become. There's another one. I want to be really careful how I say this, but I think it needs to be said because not even prayer. Now, I believe in the power of prayer, and I want to explain what I mean by this because there's things that prayer can do for you that your habits can't do for you. But prayer doesn't make up for your habits. And maybe there might be a disconnect. So I got somebody to set this up for me. So we got a short little video clip.
I love this one over food. Sometimes we pray over food and ask God to make up for our bad choices when we eat. That's funny. No matter what it is, Lord, bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies. Lord, bless this bag of Cheetos. And this jumbo Dr. Pepper, Lord. Somehow make this nourish us in some way. I don't know how you're going to do it, Father, but we just trust in you now. Father, change the molecular structure of this food. This complete trash we're about to shove in our gullet. Change the Cheeto into a carrot stick on the way down. Spirit of low carb, rain down on me now. I pray a hedge of protection around my pancreas, Lord. Right now. Intervene.
You get the point? That's the kind of prayer I'm talking about. Now, am I saying that the power of prayer doesn't work? I'm a pastor. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe God can do for you things that you cannot do for yourself. But here's what I'm talking today, because here's what I think there's some people that because of kind of the way we teach it, there becomes a disconnect between saying, hey, I'm going to pray about something, between prayer that only God can do and things that we say, hey, these are things I habitually do, but I expect a different result. And you're going to find out real quick that you will become what you consistently do. Is that true? I just want you to see, I didn't come up with this myself. This is not a self-help lesson. This is actually a message from God, from His Word. And I want to share with you some of the scriptures to kind of set us up for why is habit so important? Or does God even think habit's important? Or is it just a spiritual thing or a mystical thing that you pray to God and He makes up for all of our bad choices and then we don't have to do anything? Is that how it works? If you believe that, then I want you to think about it through the book of James. James chapter 1, I will tell you, James, if you ever want to read a book of the Bible that will rock your world, read the book of James. In fact, if you've never read the Bible, this will be a great week to start. We read the Bible together, and on the back of your handout, if you say, hey, you know what, that's one of the things I want to do the first of the year, we have a reading plan, and we read one chapter a day together, just one chapter, because a lot of us aren't big readers, and we journal a little bit. And so this week, we're reading the book of James. James is 5 chapters long, and we read one chapter a day. And I'm going to tell you what, it's going to change everything. But here's what James has to say. He says this, James chapter 1, verse 22. He says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourself. Do what it says. He's saying it's not enough just to read the word of God. You have to apply it to your life. In another place in the Bible, it actually goes as far to say, if you know what to do and you don't do it, you're worse off for having known it and not doing it. You understand how important it is? Because why? Because you will come what you consistently do, not just what you read. Maybe you never thought you'd hear that in church. Okay, James 2, verse 14, it says this. We will skip down to chapter 2, verse 14. It says, what good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? And James is pointed. He says, can such a faith save them? He's saying, I'm not even sure if you don't have the deeds to back up your faith that you're even a Christian in the first place. That's tough, isn't it? I just want to be clear, that's exactly what he's saying. We'll skip down to verse 17. He says it again, so it's not just one time. In fact, all throughout his chapters, he's going to say this. He says, in the same way, faith by itself, if not accompanied by action, is dead. Is dead. Now, that led many theologians to go, I'm confused. Maybe that's where you're at right now. And I thought about, hey, do I even want to address this? But the answer is yes, we do, because he's bringing up a so powerful point. And so what I want to do just for a second is I want to explain what James means and what he doesn't mean, okay? Because you might be saying, hey, you preached a message last Sunday about that, hey, it's about a relationship with God, that Jesus came into the world and was born, and he was the Son of God, the Son of God, and he died for our sins to restore a relationship with God. And you said last Sunday, and I did, that there's nothing that we can do to earn that, right? There's no amount of striving, there's no amount of works, there's nothing. And then James turns around and says something like this, how does that fit? But it does. And if you get it, it's going to change your life. If you don't get it, you're going to have one piece of what God is teaching, and the rest of it, there's going to be a disconnect. And I have a feeling that's where some of us are. There's kind of a disconnect. So I'm going to explain it through another passage of the Bible just to kind of help you see that what we said last week and what we say this week actually goes together. It's found in the book of Ephesians. The Apostle Paul was writing to a church that was a little confused, and in the book of Ephesians, that's right, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 and 9, you can write it down, it won't be on the screen. He said this, he said, for it is by grace you've been saved through faith, and it's not of yourselves, it's a gift of God, not of works, so that no one can boast. It seems like what Apostle Paul just said is negating this, right? I mean, that it's by God's grace, through faith in Jesus Christ, that's the only way to be saved. That's 100% correct. That God will do for us what we cannot do for ourselves, that's 100% true. That salvation is by God's grace alone, through faith in Jesus Christ alone, that's 100% correct. But Ephesians 2, verse 8 and 9, that's where a lot of Christians have read and memorized, but they never read verse 10, which says, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God has prepared in advance for us to do. That's the whole thought. The whole thought is that the order of things is we come to faith in God because we can't restore, from our sin nature, we can't restore a relationship with God. Only God, through Jesus Christ, can do that. That's what God can do for us. So then why are the works important? It isn't that we love God, it's that he loves us first. But then the overflow, right? When we love God is what we do. That's our habits. You get the idea? That's the process. The event is we come to faith in God and he saves us from our sins that we cannot do for ourselves, but it leads us to what? To live for him. Not because we're trying to earn it, but because we love him. And what James is simply saying is this. He's saying, hey, if you're not living for him, you probably don't know him in the first place. Because if he's changed your heart, it has to produce action. Just like a tree produces fruit, you wouldn't go up to an apple tree and go, it's producing pecans. I'm sorry, for somebody, pecans, if you're from the north or wherever you're from. It produces pecans, right? I mean, if it produces pecans, it's not an apple tree. Is that true? And he's saying, if your life is producing, it's producing from the root of what's going on inside. And so he's actually reverse engineering it, and he's saying it will lead to good actions, and we have to understand that because it's so important that we understand our actions matter. You see, if we're not careful, what we'll say is, well, Jesus came into my life, and he forgave all my sins, and so anytime I have a problem, I don't have to do anything. All I do is pray to God, and it changes my life, and I don't have to practice any good patterns in my life. Is that true? It's not true. And that's part of the problem. I've been in church all my life, and I can tell you a problem with the church. That we teach an easy believism that says the event is coming to faith in God, and that's right. You cannot save yourself, and nothing you do will ever save you other than coming to faith in Jesus Christ. But if you want the life that God has for you, you have to practice. I'm going to use a word that you might not like because I don't like it either. The disciplines of the Christian faith. Now, I was raised in the South, so discipline, according to my dad, meant you're going to get a whipping, right? Sorry, I didn't have a good indication of what discipline was, so I want to kind of explain discipline because if you're not careful, that's what you're thinking. God's just going to beat me up every time I do something wrong. That's not what it means. The disciplines of the Christian faith, think of it more like karate, okay? A person that becomes a master at karate practices the disciplines. Does that make sense? They start to practice certain things habitually, and the more they do it, the more it just becomes actual, almost like instincts for them. Here's how I want to define discipline for you today. Discipline is choosing between what I want now and what I want most. That's what it is. It's saying I got all these things I could do, but I'm going to choose to not do these things so I can accomplish something else. Anybody who's played sports, anybody who plays games would understand that. That there's parts of it that aren't easy, but we enjoy it, right? Anybody that plays a sport would go, hey, we really enjoy it. In fact, that's exactly what the Bible teaches. We look at what the Apostle Paul said in a book called 1 Corinthians. And in the book of 1 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul, he said this, 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 24. He's talking to a church that was kind of confused about this very issue. And he says, don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. How many people like to win? You don't have to raise your hand. We got some competitive people here. How many people like to lose? Right? It doesn't feel good, does it? You're like, if you're playing something and you lose constantly, it's not very fun. And he says, so here's what an athlete does. At verse 25, he says, all athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win the prize that will fade away. But we do it to win an eternal prize. That's a whole other thing, and we'll save that for the end. But the part I want you to focus in on right now is discipline. They practice the disciplines. By the way, the root word of disciple, do you know what it is? Discipline. It means practicing. When you become a disciple of Jesus, you know what you are? You're practicing the disciplines of the Christian faith. That's what it means. I can put it another way. You're practicing the habits of the Christian faith. The more you practice it, the better you get. Does it have to do with saving yourself? No, only Jesus Christ does that. But to become his follower, you have to practice his habits, just like an athlete. The discipline part makes me think about something that happened in the past for me when he talked about running. When I was in 5th grade, I had gotten kind of out of shape. It was one of those where you're between growth spurts. And if you look back at pictures, which I've tried to throw as many of those away as I can, but yearbooks and stuff like that seem to surface sometimes. But anyway, I'd gotten kind of heavy, and I wasn't in very good shape. And so every year when I went in the 6th grade, I was out of shape because of my 5th grade year. And I came in, and I hadn't really done any type of exercising and stuff like that. I just didn't do a lot of that because I just didn't feel like it. I like to eat, and I like to watch TV or whatever it is. I don't know, whatever I did, and play outside, but I just didn't do a lot of, like, disciplined exercise. And so when we got to the PE class, the first week of school, I don't know if they still do this, but they used to have what they call physical fitness test. And so you had to do these things, and they would evaluate you on, hey, you're supposed to be at this level, and now I think they just tell kids, hey, whatever you do, you get a prize. No, I'm just playing. But they didn't do it back then. And our PE teacher was really old school, and he was so politically incorrect. I can't even tell you. His name was I won't say it. No, I will say his name. His name was Mr. English. For anybody that ever had him. Yeah, you know. I forgot you were here. So, yeah, Mr. English was there, and he wasn't exactly politically correct all the time. But anyway, Mr. English was the one that was evaluating us. And I remember there was this one part that really got to me, and it was you have to run like almost a mile. I don't know if it's a mile or whatever, how long far it is, but it's a long-distance run. And I just remember, I think I came in maybe next to last. Maybe I came in last place. I don't know. But he did say something about that. You know, he always had a comment. He's like, you know. So needless to say, I was at the lower percentile of my physical fitness at that point. And it did something to me. I don't know what, but it just struck something in me, and I said, you know what? I don't want to lose, right? I mean, didn't anyone say? You want to run to win. I want to win. I want to win one time. And so I had watched Rocky, and so I kind of knew what I needed to do. I'm just playing. But I started waking up every morning at 6 a.m. I don't know. I mean, like, I don't remember exactly what led me to do that, but I was just like, I didn't know anything about training. I didn't watch anything. I just knew, hey, I'm going to do a little bit every day. That was I haven't really lived like that since then, but I did do it my 6th grade year. I started changing some of my eating patterns, but the biggest thing I did was I woke up every day and I ran just a little bit every day. And I get up and we lived on North Court Street, so if you know anything, when I say elementary school, I meant where the middle school is now. And it's the same gymnasium, by the way. Maybe that's why we were there the other day. It's the new town center for Windsor. You know you're in a small town when that's our town center. But just playing. No, it's really nice, and they've redone it. But it's the same gymnasium that we had growing up. And so, we lived on North Court Street at this end, and so I'd run towards 460, but I couldn't make it all the way to 460. I couldn't even go that far. So a couple blocks away was a sign by Richard Holland's house that was a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign back when North Court Street was 35 miles an hour. It's not anymore. It's 25. I think anyway, I don't know what they're doing on North Court Street. I think it's like a speed trap, but my input for it. But 35 miles an hour, and I would run in the morning. I'd get up and I'd run at 6 a.m. I'd run down to the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. That's as far as I could go. And then I'd walk back. And then the next day, I ran down and I'd walk back. I went a little bit further. And then finally I could run down to the sign and run back. Then I could run from where I was at all the way down to 460 and back. Then I would go around the whole loop. I remember the first day I did that, and I was like, oh, man, I can't believe I made it around the whole loop. So I ran all the way from my house all the way around to 460, down Duke Street, and came back around and made that loop. And then I remember when I could do it twice. And then I remember when I could do it 3 times. And then I remember when I could do it 4 times and 5 times. And finally, I was running like 5-6 miles a day. Same year. And I looked different. And it changed a lot of things in my life. And we can talk about keystone habits. And I really understood it from that because then I started looking better. And I had a girlfriend. And anyway, 6th grade. It was pretty cool. And and it changed my life. I mean, it is something to me. It was like I transformed into a different person almost. But part of it was running. But the biggest part that I took that year is when we came back at the end of the year. And we had to run because they evaluate you. I actually won. I beat everybody in my class. And that's including Jimmy Ruffin. If anybody knows Jimmy Ruffin, somebody does. He's actually a bodybuilder now. He's much better shaped than I am, and he was a much better athlete than I've ever been. But I did beat him that one time. He might not admit to it, but I did beat him that day on that race. And Mr. English couldn't believe it. He was like, are we sure we got the right person? You look different. You act different. You actually won this race. We can't believe it. You were the worst, and now you're the best. Can I tell you what the difference was? Habit. Consistent change. We want to win. Let me tell you something. We understand it when it comes probably to athletics, that you have to slowly discipline yourself. And the more you do, you can accomplish more and more and more as you practice the disciplines. I can put it another way. We understand it when it comes to geography. A couple years ago, we did a message series called The Law of the Path. And the law of the path is this, that direction, not intentions, determines destination. Is that true? That's what we learned. And it was 100% correct. I learned that I get lost very easily. I'm directionally challenged, believe it or not. I don't have a sense of direction, north, south. I don't just do that all the time. But one thing I do know is this. We like to go to Disney. We haven't been in several years, but we do enjoy it when we go. And so to go to Disney World from here, you would just go out here. You go down, you get on 58, take a right on 58, and then you take a left on 95, right? That's 95 south. And that's how you go to Disney. It's real simple. And then they have signs. Once you get there, they own everything, so you'll find it. That's my plan. I don't need GPS. I got it. But I know how to go south. Can I tell you what doesn't work? If you were to leave here and you go out on 460, and when you get on 58, you would take a right and go north. Doesn't work, does it? Anybody think, well, I really, really want to go there, so if I take a right, but I really wish upon a star, I'm going to get to Disney, right? Nope. You're going to go north because direction trumps your intention. Is that right? Can I ask you a question? If you were to pray to God, not being sacrilegious, I just want to make sure you get this. If you were to pray to God and you were to say, God, I want to go to Disney. I really want to, and I'm praying that I can go. If you were to turn right, unless you were to go over the Arctic and come all the way around the world, you're not going to make it, are you? Is that true? Even if you prayed. I'm just trying to be clear that it trumps. It isn't that God can't do things. It isn't that God couldn't supernaturally do it. But you asked me the last time that he violates the laws of nature. He's not going to just because we say, hey, I want to do it, but I'd rather go to Florida North. So God, I'm going to pray that you change all the laws in the world. We know when it comes to gravity, right? We jumped out of a plane this year. It's one of the best things I've ever had in my life. But here's the one thing I know. I still can't violate the law of gravity. If I jump out that plane, I say, Lord, I'd really like you to violate the law of gravity. Please don't try this, right? It doesn't work. I'm just telling you because there are some disconnects that I see. Now, so far, this message has been about the biggest duh, right? Until we come to what I'm going to talk about right now. And I led all this to this point to be able to say this because I understand that I might rub some people the wrong way today. I'm actually okay with that. If you want to send me an email, I'm John Basin at newbranch.net. No, I'm just playing. John's our new music guy, so he'll love that. So, and you might as well. That's right. You might as well send it to him because I don't care. Okay? No, I'm just playing. I do care, and I do care about what I'm about to say because I do not want you to leave today going, they judged me at this church today. That's not the intention. My intention is not to put you down. And if I get ready to, what I'm about to say, if I say one of these things and they hit close to home, I was not thinking directly of you. I'm thinking of several people. I picked things that I went, a lot of people, a majority of people. If I were to say this is a list that a majority of people are struggling with, that's exactly true. And I have a feeling when we point it, it's like a doctor poking on you, and all of a sudden I'm going to say one of them and it's going to go, oh. Because you're going to go, this is so simple, it's so logical, but understand about our habits, there's a disconnect because it's an emotional thing, not a logical thing. And if you were to think down the path, you would be able to say, hey, this isn't what I really want, but it's what I'm doing, and there's a disconnect. And I want us to get it today because our direction, not our intentions, determines our destination. Our habits mean this. What I consistently do is what I will become. So important. So let me give you a couple of them. If they fit, just don't get upset. Think about, am I willing to do something different? My intention is this. I want to have a great guy. I want to have a great Christian guy in my life. But my habit is this. I'll go out with whoever is cute. I'll go out with whoever I found in the club. I suddenly want this guy that I found in a club that's so far away from God to make a good Christian marriage. There's a disconnect there. Intention. My intention is I want our family to be a strong family unit. But my habit is, so I'm going to go work all the time. Can I say it again? Habit will trump your intentions every single time. Intention, I want to grow old and invest in my grandchildren, so I'll neglect my health. That's my habit. You're not going to be here. You get it? Intention, I want to lose weight. Habit, so supersize me. Okay. That's one I've tried. It didn't work, by the way. Intention, I want to know God and have joy. Habit, so I'll wake up every morning and watch the news. You didn't think about that, did you? You ever thought about your day and thought about how you start it is so critical? And the first thing some of us do is we got to know what's going on in the world, so we click. And then you leave and you've been upset all day and you had no idea that the simple habit of watching the news every morning is messing you up for your whole life. Can I tell you something? What you consistently do is what you will become. You watch the 24-hour day news and you see if that's where you want to become. Be careful. Anyway, intention. I want to have an incredible sex life in my marriage, so I'll practice with everyone I date. Not going to work. Intention. I want to break my addictions that I've had for years. Habit. I can do this through my own self-discipline. I don't need other people. I don't need programs. I've been an addict for 20-some years, maybe all my life, and I think I can break it on my own. You know what insanity is? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I've been sober for a day, but this time it's really going to work. Can I tell you something? It is not. It's the same pattern. It's the predictable destination over and over and over. Okay. Intention. I want to have a great Christian marriage. Habit. So I'll live together before I get married. Intention. I want to have financial security. Habit. So I'll take on more debt. You know what the law of the hole is? If you want to get out of the hole, stop digging. All right? You take on more debt, it's just not going to work out. And I know that was a pretty pointed list, but there is a disconnect that happens when we go, but you don't understand. See, and I understand that some of us get there, and there's different ways why we get there, but we're not looking at the big picture. It's an emotional response to the now, but we somehow think that it's going to work out all right in the end. But let me tell you something. Direction trumps intention every single time. Can I say every time? Every time. Not what I think about, not what I intend to do, not even what I pray about. Because praying about to say, God, I want to do this, but I want it to turn out like this, you know what that's doing? It's saying, I want to go to Disney, and I'm driving north. And you see the futility to that. But yet I find people that come up every Sunday and pray about things and say, John, do you think God will bless my life? Sometimes they're shocked when I say, no. What? No, because your life isn't adding up. Now, does that not mean that God forgives me? No, God forgives you. God will forgive you. But you cannot have the God-given life that you want without practicing the disciplines of the Christian faith. That's not judgmental. That's just a fact. Any more than God's going to turn a Cheeto into a carrot stick. It hasn't happened. I've prayed that many times, and it just hasn't happened, okay? Any more than you can drive north and go to Florida, it's not going to work. Any more than I can defy gravity, it's not going to happen. And that's where we have to be at today, because if we're going to apply this, we have to be honest about where we are going. Now, some of you guys, let me tell you, it doesn't mean all negatives. Some of you guys have started putting some good habits into your life. And what I would challenge you with is, as we're evaluating to come into this new year, I would challenge you to say, hey, capture some of the good habits, because if you're not careful, you won't realize what led you there. But believe me, because when I started running and I did all that, it worked for a long time, and then I broke my collarbone, and then I kind of got back out of shape because I stopped practicing that discipline in my life. And I went back and forth, and I've gotten back into it now so I can run further. I can run further than that now. You might not believe it in this body, but it's amazing what I can do. Okay. But I can, which is pretty awesome. But I will tell you this, it starts slow, but the direction makes a difference. Some of you guys, you found that in your relationships. You finally started practicing some good principles in your relationships, and you're starting to reap the benefits. Don't miss that it came because you're practicing that habitually, right? You're realizing that in your finances. Is that correct? That some of us took financial peace a number of years ago, and we're starting to see that pay off now. We're starting to see that what we consistently do, that's what we become. Some of us have gotten completely out of debt as a result. It's absolutely amazing. So if you want some of that, we're going to be doing Financial Peace University here at our church. It's a seminar coming up in a couple months. And so be looking out for that. If you go, hey, you know what, I need that, or I need a refresher. Hey, I tried it. And you're going, hey, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If it didn't work, come back and let's figure it out. You know where else we find it out? Spiritually. To me, the biggest disconnect in the church is that we don't realize that it's linked to our spirituality, but some of you guys are starting to realize it. That a disciple practices the disciplines of the Christian faith. So here's what I want you to do between now and the first of the year, is to evaluate yourself. What do I want most? What do you want most? There's a blank on your page. I'd like to ask you to pull that out and have a time of reflection. If you need to come to faith in Jesus Christ, you can do that right now. Today is the day of salvation. Never put that off. Let God do for you what only He can do. But if you want to practice the disciplines of the faith, that you might be thinking, I came to the power of habit and I was hoping you were going to just hit me up with the one thing I need to do. It doesn't work that way. Habits are multifaceted. Disciplines are multifaceted. And we're going to talk about many of them, but the first place you got to start is, what do you want most? Because one thing I know is this: if you don't want it most, there's going to come hard days and you're going to quit, right? So you got to decide what you want most. The second thing is this. The second thing is, we'll put it up here on the screen. What do I need to do now to have what I want most? There's going to be sacrifices, right? There's disciplines. But if I decide this is what I want most, then I need to ask, what do I need to do right now to start? The way I want to wrap up, though, is this. I want you to take that with you, and I just want you to evaluate. There's one piece that's missing, though. It's the key to habit that might be missing in your life. And this is where we're going to differentiate, because up till now, you could say the same thing here or the same thing in self-help books. You could use them either way. But this is where we differentiate. We're a church. We're not a self-help class. And this is the part that's the key to habits. And if you don't have it, it will never work. The key to habit is this. You need spirit discipline, not self-discipline. That God has a part in this. That not only does He save us, but He also helps us in the discipleship process. He helps us choose our disciplines. He helps us choose the pathway. If you don't, then here's what's going to happen to you. You could get very successful. If you took what I did today, you could get very successful at what you want most. Can I tell you what the problem is? I don't know about you, but when I was looking back down memory lane, like in 6th grade, what I wanted most then isn't what I want most now. And I have a feeling in 20 years, if I live that long, what I want then is not the same thing that I'm going to want now. You could do really good and become very successful at doing the wrong thing. Did you know that? It's like this. You could climb the ladder of success only to find out it's on the wrong wall. This is where the Spirit of God comes into play. You have to allow Him to be part, to speak into your life. You have to allow Him to come in and help you. The other part is this, is that He sees down the path, you don't. He knows what's coming in your life, and we have a way of human beings. I talked to my father-in-law, he's a survivalist, and so anybody talked to him while he was here over Christmas? Sorry, no, I'm just playing. No, I'm just playing. He's an awesome guy, but one thing that we know is this, is that human beings have the ability to hope for the best, even when there's no hope. Can I tell you something about life that's probably going to be very discouraging? Life only gets harder. Life only gets harder. Did you know? Look at somebody that's older and ask, hey, did life turn out like you thought? Did it turn out to be the fairy tale that you thought? No, you hang on to it as long as you can, but life has a way of coming around and all the things are not good. And some of you, that's exactly what's happened to you. And the reason why you don't have habits, can I tell you why I dropped my habit of running for a period of time? I broke my collarbone and it got hard. And it was a lot harder than I thought, and I just stopped doing it. Can I tell you what the problem with the church is? Is that we teach an easy believism that says you can come here And then God's going to take care of everything. Now, God does take care of your salvation, 100%. You cannot do that. But here's where we go wrong, is we kind of teach, hey, you go to Jesus, and then anytime something bad happens, he's just going to go, poof, and nothing bad's ever going to touch you in your life. Is that true for anyone? If it is, I'd love to come see you, right? You can name it and claim it and gab it and grab it, and God will take care of all your needs right in the instant that you ask, and nothing ever bad will ever touch you again in this life. That is not what the Bible teaches. It is a heresy that's worse than anything I can imagine, because we're teaching people that, and then their faith is rocked when the life doesn't add up to that. And by the way, I'm a pastor. I stand beside many gravesides. It all ends in death in this life. So what do we do then? You're painting a really negative picture today, John. No, I'm not. I'm painting a realistic picture that you need to face, because if you don't get this, you'll never make sense of life. But if you get it, I'll tell you something, you could win. For the competitors in the room, you like that, don't you? You know what I don't like? I remember the first day I started football, it was in 8th grade at Windsor High School. We didn't have middle school, unfortunately, because then the big guys came. And you know what the first thing they did to me? They literally knocked me off my feet. I got down in a stance, and before I could even get up, the guy actually almost dislocated my shoulder, and my pads were all everywhere. And I felt like quitting. And I remember they did it over and over and over and just pounded me in the ground. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to be for me. And at the end of it, they said, hey, come back this afternoon, because this was 2 days of practices. They said, come back today. We're going to do it again. Then they said, hey, can I show you something? Can I show you why that happened to you? You see, they wanted me to feel the pain first. While you're sitting on the ground, all like, I can't even move. I can't even move my arm. And they're like, come back. I'm not coming back. And they said, I can show you what you're doing wrong. You want to see? By the way, I did want to see then, right? It was kind of like, yeah. What you got? And then they showed me, right? And I got a little bit better that day. And by the time a couple years passed, then you're the one that's knocking everybody's clock off, right? And then you're teaching somebody. It wasn't just about getting knocked down. It was about them saying, hey, if you practice this discipline, you practice this habit, you practice this muscle memory, guess what's going to happen? You're going to win. Then it felt good. Do you know the same thing is true of life? And that the church, I can tell you because I'm a pastor, and I've done a lot of this myself. I'm a son of a pastor, so I've been around this all my life. We teach it wrong many times. We never teach people how to win. But I'm ready to win. Are you? I'm ready to win in this life. How do I do when life throws all this stuff at me? And it happened to be that the Apostle Paul wrote to a church at Ephesus that was struggling with this very thing. They were suffering more than just about anybody else. And in Ephesus, he said, hey, because of all these things, here's what he wrote. Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 13. He said, therefore. Whenever you see the word therefore, you know what you do? You ask, what is it there for? Okay. What is it there for? He was saying, life is so hard. The devil is coming at you. See, here's the part we don't teach. It's like you come to faith in Jesus, and then everything's going to be better in your life, and that's true. But what we didn't say is that the enemy is going to leave you alone. You know, Jesus came into your life, and now the enemy has no more control of you, and he'll never bother you again. And then the enemy did exactly what they did on the football team. You were saved for 6 weeks, and he left you alone. You know what he did that for? To give you false security. Because you didn't think the demons would ever come back. And then after 6 weeks, and I know it's about that time period because people come here and, oh, this church is so awesome, and God has changed my life. And then after 6 weeks, we don't see you for a while because the old life calls you back, doesn't it? And you went, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know it was still a fight. Because nobody told you that. They just told you, come to faith in God and he'll take care of all your problems. That ain't true, by the way. He'll save you. He'll do for you what only God can do. But you never learned the disciplines of saying, hey, what happens when the enemy comes and he punches you right in the face and you're down on the ground and you're crying and you're crying. Some of you guys, this is right where you are. I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying, I'm painting you a picture of what life is really like for you, isn't it? That you're down on the ground and you're crying out to God and you're going, God, why did you let this happen? Because you didn't know it was a fight. And you didn't know the enemy will never leave you until Jesus Christ returns. He will never leave you alone. He will come back and back and back, and he will hammer you into the ground. Is that true? Some of you guys know exactly what I'm talking about because this holiday season, it was the best time of the year, and then all of a sudden it was like, boom, and it's the worst time of the year. You want to know how you get past it? Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, it's not if. Oh, problems won't ever come back again. It's only if they come. No, if. They're coming for you. And when they come, guess what? When you put on the full armor of God, you will be able to stand your ground. You know what that means? You'll be able to win. The Apostle Paul said it in another place. You know what he said? Run the race to win. You ready to win? You know what the problem with Christians are? We're a bunch of losers. And then we gather over losing. And God is saying you were never meant to lose. You're meant to win. And the way you win is the day you go, hey, Satan knocked me off my feet, and a good Christian person comes alongside you, and they say, let me show you. Oh, I see, you're crying. I see somebody pounded you in the ground, and then one of the varsity players comes, and they pick you up, and they say, could I show you something that might change your life? That if you put on the full armor of God, he can't knock you down anymore. Got your attention yet? You've been getting knocked down for a while, and he's saying, if you put on the full armor of God, when the enemy comes, you will stand. Oh, and he says it twice, right? After everything, you will stand. After he throws everything he's got, you will stand. Are you ready to win? You see what I'm saying? If you are, and here's what I'm going to tell you, you got to learn how to put on the full armor of God. You got to become a disciple. You know what it means? Practice the disciplines of the Christian faith. When you do, you'll stand. And this is better than name it and claim it. Can I tell you why? Because name it and claim it says, and when bad things happen, then if good circumstances are here, I can stand. But this says that even in the worst of circumstances, I can stand and I can win, and God is God over the worst things that ever happen, but I don't have to be afraid with the full armor of God. That's big, isn't it? You ready for that? I'm going to tell you how to do it. It's not one thing. It's 7. There's 7 disciplines that we want to tell you about. And if you'll give me the next 10 hours, no, I'm just playing. I'm going to ask for 7 hours of your time over a period of time, okay? Not today. Starting on January 13th, I'm going to ask you to come to a series called 7 Habits of a Follower of Christ. 7 habits of a follower of Jesus. 7 habits, 7 disciplines. If you do them, you're his disciple. If you don't, you're not his disciple. You may be saved. You're not practicing. And if you don't practice, you're going to get knocked down. And it's not your intentions, right? It's your habits. You get it? It's not even what you pray. It's your habits. If you do these, he will bless your life beyond what you can think of. You'll pick up the full armor of God, and you will stand no matter what circumstances, good times, bad times, whatever. Guarantee you. I was about to say this is my life's work. This is Jesus Christ's life work. And he wants to give it to you so that you can win. Some of us hadn't won in so long, right? Life has been beating you down so bad. You need this, right? I want you to commit. Will you come for 7 weeks? If you can't be here, will you watch it online? It's that important. Don't skip it. So important. This is going to revolutionize our lives. And imagine what God could do with a church that puts on the full armor. Now, you might be going, well, then why don't we start that next week? Because we got one more message before we're ready for it. It's kind of an instruction. It's kind of like, until those guys knocked me down, I didn't realize what I needed. Does that make sense? Next week, we got to kind of explain it, or you won't really get it. And the problem in the past is we might have explained some of these habits, but you didn't really get how to apply them. And one of the things is this, is it's going to be a lot, because when I say it, this is what the whole Christian life is about. That cannot be done in a day, okay? Just want to make sure you understand. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to have a 7-part series, and you're going to come already, and then you're going to go, I just can't do all this in a day. It's not meant to be done in a day. It's meant to be done over time. And next week, we're going to tell you, how do I start? How do I start slow? When I say start slow, that's what I named the message for next week. I mean, start, but do it slowly. But start now. Okay? That's the deal. Start now. If you don't start now, you will never do it. Okay? Don't fool yourself. If you don't do this, then you will be the person that keeps coming here for prayer that goes, and we'll keep praying for you, that I'm beat up by the enemy, but you don't change the habit, and what happens? Then you're going to keep getting beat up by the enemy. Now, I'm praying that I won't. Well, that's not going to do anything for you. Sorry. If you don't put on the full armor of God, the enemy's going to come and he's going to knock you out. And we'll pick you up, and we'll pick you up, and we'll pick you up. I'm asking, do you want to win? 7 habits. Come back next week. We'll explain the process. It's going to be absolutely awesome. It's going to revolutionize everything. Does that make sense? So here's what I want to do. I want to get out of the way. I want to pray for you today. Let God do what only he does. What I want you to do, though, before now and the first of the year, I want you to ask, what do I want most? What do I want most? One thing I know is this. If you don't answer that question, you'll never do this. If this isn't what you want most, you won't stick to it, because let me say something. The event is easy. You hear me? The event is easy. The process is hard. The event is quick. When you ask Jesus Christ to come in and save you, guess what? That's quick. That's now. Discipleship is a lifetime. You got to ask yourself a question. Do I really want this? But if you do, I can guarantee you it'll be the best thing you've ever had in your entire life. All right, let me pray for you. Let's stand for prayer.